Welcome back. This is your Feel Good Morning with Expresso only on SABC3. Now, safety on our roads is of critical importance, with fatal accidents happening almost every day, most of which are caused by reckless driving. But what is being done to curb reckless driving, and what are the implications if you are found guilty of reckless driving? Now, this morning, I'm joined by the Chief Director of Transport Regulation, Yasir Ahmed. How are you, my man? You all right?
How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. Always nice to have you in studio. Now, reckless driving, I mean, there's a vast, talk about reckless driving, but how do you define it?
Well, when we talk about reckless driving, we actually talk about reckless driving within the context also of reckless, negligent, and also inconsiderate driving. I think that's something that a lot of people on our roads face almost every day. Reckless drivers, when we think reckless drivers, we think of taxi drivers, unfortunately. But it's not just taxi drivers. We have to also think of inconsiderate driving of people, for instance, hogging the fast lane, people overtaking on solid barrier lines where they should not be overtaking, where they could possibly endanger their own lives, and of course endanger other people's lives as oncoming traffic comes along. So when we look at reckless driving, it's actually a basket of driving behavior that we are trying to change on our roads in South Africa.
I'm sure people being on cell phones as well classify as reckless driving. I see that every single day.
Absolutely. Not just speaking on cell phone, we talk about distracted driving. People speaking on their cell phones, people possibly even smoking, eating while they're driving. Unfortunately, people putting on makeup, and not just the ladies putting on their makeup while they're driving. So these are all driver behavior and attitudes on our roads that we are trying to change with new regulations.
All right, so looking at the fine implications, I mean, what can people face if caught reckless driving?
Well, the fines will vary depending on the circumstances. If somebody is driving recklessly or negligently on a national road at 120, 130 kilometers per hour, the implications of that, of course, could be very severe. We could have quite a few people killed on the road. So there, you may find that an admission of guilt fine is not going to be allowed, that the person could be arrested. So the circumstances will dictate what the fines will be. If no admission of guilt fine is going to be allowed, the person could be arrested. That could be the ultimate sanction that could be imposed. But it's normally in the order of about 500 Rand to 1,500 Rand fine that has to be paid. And of course, with ARTO, the Administrative Adjudication of Road Traffic Offences Act, coming into effect within the next year or so, that could lead to quite a few demerit points against the driver's license.
All right.
So those are measures that we are looking at with new legislation that's coming up.
All right, and I mean, everything is being done to enforce those laws as well. Now, the minister has rolled out a decade of action plan, I mean, up until 2020.
Yes.
What is this plan all about?
Well, South Africa is part of what we call the United Nations Decade of Action Against Road Safety, or for road safety. And the Decade of Action has got 5 pillars. And Minister Ndebele has signed an agreement at the international level with the United Nations, where South Africa has committed to improving unfortunately, our appalling road safety record by abiding by these 5 pillars. The first one is just road safety management. We have got a National Department of Transport, a Road Traffic Management Corporation at the national level that is going to coordinate road safety matters. Then we have a pillar called Safer Roads, and that's looking at the engineering, looking at safe pedestrian crossings, safe pedestrian footbridges, etc. Safer vehicles, how we legislate to, for instance, ensure that our minibus taxis, our buses, etc. are safe, that all vehicles have got safety belts. We've got most of that in place, but of course there are other countries all over the world that still need that type of legislation. We are looking as South Africa at introducing periodic vehicle testing. Now, if you buy a vehicle, the vehicle may be 20 years old.
It needs to be tested.
It needs to be tested on a regular basis. Those regulations are in draft form. I would suggest everybody have a look at that, because that will certainly have implications for any cars older than 10 years as in that first phase. Safer road users, we want to educate road users, especially our pedestrians and school kids, on how to be safer on the roads. And of course, the last pillar is the post-crash care. That's the ambulance drivers, making sure that they know what to do to make our at an accident scene to ensure that somebody in that golden hour that we save as many lives as possible.
Awesome. Yasir, thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for all that information. And remember, you can also report reckless driving. If you want to find out more, check out our website. We'll put a link there as to where you can find out more of what you need to do when you spot someone reckless driving. But from my side, guys, cell phones really is a distraction. Don't talk on your phone. Don't SMS. I see it every day. I see a lot of accidents happen because of it. So just be careful for that. So stay tuned. Lots more coming up on Expresso. Stay with Expresso and SABC3.